I've spent my adult life tracking and filming the most impressive creatures we have around today, but I've always been intrigued by the animals of the Ice Age. They had to be robust and rugged to put up with the most savage conditions that the Ice Age world could throw at them. They survived for hundreds of thousands of years, and then they had to move on, or some went extinct, in ways that we're only now beginning to understand. One person that understands the creatures of the Ice Age better than most is world-leading archaeologist, Professor Danielle Shreve. She's uncovered the remains of Ice Age creatures found here and across the UK. But during the Ice Age, this area would have looked very different. So we're in the midst of verdant, green English countryside. But how would right here have looked during the peak of the last Ice Age?
So, first of all, it would have looked very different in terms of no woodland behind you. It would have been a really bleak and barren landscape, pretty savage conditions. It would have been almost intolerable here.
But what about the rest of the nation as it is now?
That kind of environment pretty much covered the whole of this part of England, extending up into the Midlands, and it's only when you get further to the north that you start to get the large ice sheets building up.
During the Ice Age, not only was a large part of Britain covered in ice, but it wasn't even an island. Because more of the water in the ocean was locked up in ice sheets, the sea level was at times 130 metres lower, and Britain was connected to Europe.
If we go back to the middle part of the last Ice Age, this was an extinct ecosystem known as the Mammoth Steppe. It ranges all the way from here in southwest England into Asia. It was super rich in plant diversity and animal diversity.
The Mammoth Steppe was the stomping ground for one of the masters of the Ice Age, the woolly mammoth. Closely related to modern elephants, they spread out of Africa into the colder, harsher landscapes of the Northern Hemisphere about 3 million years ago. The woolly mammoth evolved to endure harsher temperatures and used the Mammoth Steppe as grazing lands, typically roaming thousands of miles in their lifetime as they hunted out new feeding lands. These wandering herds of mammoth were led by a dominant female known as the matriarch. Standing nearly 3.5 meters tall and weighing about 6 tons, this majestic creature would have led groups of up to 15 individuals along the 8,000 miles of the Mammoth Steppe. It would take the matriarch almost half a year to guide the herd across the Mammoth Steppe from Siberia all the way to the southwest of England. But how do we know for sure that these incredible creatures really lived right here in the UK? I'm hoping Danielle has the bones to prove it. Cheddar Gorge is an Ice Age graveyard. And archaeologist Danielle Shreve will reveal what's been found deep below the ground.
We've got some pretty unusual things, and it's important to remember that these are animals that were living right here, and they are things that we don't find living in Britain anymore.
This is one that I recognise because you can't miss it. That's a mammoth tooth. It's very, very similar to a modern elephant tooth.
Mammoths go through a set of 6 teeth in their lifetime. Once these teeth wear away, they're replaced by the next one, a bigger one, in the system. So the teeth feed from the back like a conveyor belt.
These giant teeth allowed the matriarch to eat a gargantuan 200 kilos of plant matter daily. She may have spent as long as 20 hours each day foraging for fresh grass and flowering herbs like clover. But Danielle has the remains of other creatures the mammoth would have encountered in Siberia. And here's an animal I know firsthand, an Ice Age creature that's still found today in the sub-zero temperatures of the Arctic, but used to be a UK resident. OK, so that one I recognise, that's fox, right?
It is a fox, but not the red fox that we have in Britain today. This is actually an Arctic fox.
Arctic fox is the ultimate cold-adapted animal, isn't it? It's smaller than our red fox, smaller ears. It has that great big tail that it can use to wrap round itself almost like a comfort blanket. This is an animal that doesn't even start shivering until it's -30, -40. In some ways, it is the Arctic specialist.
Certainly is. They have excellent thermal insulation.
The Arctic fox died out in the UK when temperatures started to rise about 12,000 years ago. However, Danielle has the remains of some fearsome predators that used Ice Age Somerset as their hunting ground.
We've got our spotted hyena, the same species that we find in Africa today. They were much more widespread in the past. They were all over Europe. And you can see these are animals that are perfectly adapted to bone crushing and crunching.
Spotted hyenas would have made the plains of Ice Age Britain a dangerous place to be. Hunting in packs, these monsters would have been up to 20% bigger than their modern descendants, with each individual almost the size of a lion. Their jaws would have been stronger than any land predator today, biting with enough force to crush the skulls of their herbivore prey. Do we have any signs on these bones of them being fed on by predators?
Yes, definitely. And if you think about the way that carnivores hunt today, they will go after the more vulnerable individuals. So they might go after elderly and sick animals, but predominantly they'll be hunting the younger ones. We've got a specimen over here where you can see the power of those hyena jaws. So this is actually part of a red deer. It's part of the thigh bone. And if I just turn it round, you can hopefully see that there are huge puncture marks, pits that are left behind by the powerful canine teeth of the hyena.
This bone really tells a story. This gives me an image of a massive hyena crunching through the bones of an animal that's long since passed. And to imagine that happening right here puts the hairs up on the back of my neck.